Good evening, class. This is Rebecca Bertisto. I am your speech instructor for SPC 1017 Everglades Week 2. Today I'm going to talk to you about preparing for your speech this week. You're going to do a demonstration speech. It's due on Saturday by midnight. And there are a few things that I want to touch on. A demonstration speech is a how-to speech. It's a type of informative speech. So you're going to be informing people, your audience, about how to do something. And the intent is that by the time your speech is finished, your audience will know how to do whatever you have taught them to do. So keep that in mind, because there's a lot of information that you may provide that you need to review consistently throughout your speech. If it gets very complicated, then it might be difficult for your audience to retain the information, and that may not be the best topic for you to choose. While I'm on the subject of choosing topics, there's one specific topic that I want to tell you about that you should not do a speech on. And I warned my students last semester not to do a speech on this, and that was the first semester since I've been teaching at Everglades, which is now, I think, about 3 years. That's the first semester that somebody didn't do this speech, and it was a big relief for me. So I want to warn you guys as well. The one speech that I tell people not to do for a demonstration is how to make a smoothie. This is a very popular topic and has become more popular with green smoothies, but this is a very difficult subject to do a demonstration speech on for several reasons. One, there's not a lot that goes into making a smoothie. There's the ingredients, you put them all in the blender, and that's it. So you have to fill 3 to 5 minutes of time on how to make a smoothie, but not much happens in the process of making a smoothie. Two, most people already know how to make a smoothie, so it's hard to connect to an audience when they already know what you're going to tell them. Three, making a smoothie doesn't really need a lot of research. So when it comes to providing your audience with resources, which you have to do in the speech, you have to go out and do additional research, and you don't really need to learn that information. So I feel like it's not a good use of your time as a student. And four, and the most important reason you shouldn't make a smoothie is when you're using any kind of electronic, any noise that comes through the computer, through the microphone, is amplified. So if there's a lot of bouncing around, then I hear that really loud, and your audience would hear that really loud too. So when you turn on a blender, it's really, really loud, and I can't hear you talking. So of the 3 minutes that you are supposed to be speaking, let's say 45 seconds of that time is using the blender. That's time that I don't hear you speaking, so that's a waste, that's dead air, and so you'll lose points because there's just time there that I don't hear anything. It's not a speech. So making a smoothie is the one subject that I ask people to please stay away from that subject. Other than that, I see lots of different topics, and I really enjoy watching the demonstration speeches because I learn so much. Almost every semester somebody does a pre-flight check, and that's fine. You can do that. That's a good speech. The only thing that I would mention with the pre-flight check for those students that are in aviation, you have to be at the airport, and obviously if you're at the airport there are planes going off in the background, so it can get really loud. But if you know it's a quiet day, if you know that it's not going to be so loud, that's a great speech to do. I have had people teach me how to change the oil in my car. That was a really good and useful one. I've had how to clean the inside of your washing machine. That was very useful. All kinds of things. A lot of people like to teach me how to use essential oils, and not a lot goes into that either. Every time I try to give a speech, my dog walks in. I'm sorry about the noise. So I would avoid the essential oil speech. It's not a bad speech, but there's not a lot of information, there's not a lot of demonstration that I can see going into that speech. So how to make something, how to build something, how to change something, how to clean something, these are all good ideas, okay? Some other things that I want to go over, I mentioned that you have to have 3 credible sources. That means you have to go and do research and find information from 3 sources that you're going to present in your speech. This does not mean that during your speech you should tell me, for more information, go to this website. Because you're really telling your audience to go do research on their own where you're supposed to be providing the information. They don't need to go do the research. So instead, what you do during your speech is you say, according to the American Dental Association, 9 out of 10 children under the age of 3 have cavities. So you've given me a credible, I know the American Dental Association is a credible source, and you've given me the information, not just where to find more information. Another thing with sources is it's quite common for me to see people bulk their sources. So instead of providing the information, what somebody would say would be, and I got my research from the American Dental Association, the Association of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and the Parents Association of South Florida. So that's bulking your sources, and it doesn't really spread your sources out. So I don't get a lot of information from your sources. And the purpose of having sources is to back up what you're saying. So I know that you tell me one thing, but I want to hear from an expert that what you're saying is actually true, because that boosts your credibility. So that's why you have sources. So make sure that you spread your sources throughout the speech, and make sure that you present the information from your source, not just the source itself. Let me know if you have any questions about that. You can ask me in the Ask Questions section of the discussion, or you can send me an email, or you can call me too. So I mentioned don't bulk your sources. I mentioned no blenders. I mentioned the purpose of a demonstration speech. I'm looking at the notes that I wrote down to remind myself of what I needed to tell you today. In addition to sources, you will also need a visual aid for this speech. A visual aid can be difficult when we're talking online, because you need to present something, but you cannot edit your speech. So ordinarily, if you're in a classroom, you might be tempted to make a presentation, right, a PowerPoint, and have that showing behind you. But in this case, you can't do that, or at least you can't do that very easily, because there's no way to embed your presentation without editing your video, and you cannot edit your video. No way, no how. So some of the things that you can do is you can show an item, like when we're talking about mugs, the best mug to use for making a tea is a shallow mug, because it allows you to get the tea leaves really far into the mug. That's an example of a visual aid. I showed you a mug, okay? If you try to show, sometimes people will try to show me a presentation and they'll hold it up, or they'll try to write out something or draw a diagram and show it to me, but it turns it backwards. So let me give you an example. Let me find something. Okay, here. I have a recipe that I wrote out. So you can see I'm holding it up for you, but you can't read it very well because it's backwards. That's what the computer does. It shows you the mirror image of the notes. So it's better to use an object when you're talking online rather than using notes. If you were giving a presentation online, a webinar or something like that, then you might show a screenshot. But unfortunately, because we're in a public speaking class and we're supposed to be replicating the stage as much as possible, you can't stop and start your video. I need to see you. So unfortunately for this particular exercise, you can't do that. So I recommend using an object, something that shows what you're talking about. So I talked about pre-flight inspection. If you wanted to do that speech, then the actual plane is your visual aid. You don't need to bring in something else. A plane is pretty good visual aid. And likewise, when somebody showed me how to change the oil in my car, they were out in the garage and they were showing me how to change the oil. The car is the visual aid. Okay. By the way, this is just a little bit off topic, but if you have any kind of cooking or barbecuing or smoking or anything like that, those are always really good topics to use. And if you do something like that, let's say you decided to show me how to use a smoker, then one of the things I recommend is having the before item. So let's say you wanted to show me how to smoke a whole chicken. Show me the chicken, show me the spices that you're going to put on and all of the elements that go into cooking it, and then show me what the finished product looks like. So if you're going to show me how to make muffins, show me all of the elements that would go into it, all of the ingredients, and then show the finished product, because I'm not going to be there for the 20 minutes, 15 minutes, however long it takes you to actually bake the muffins. I can't wait for that. So show me the finished product as well. Think about the way people do it on Home and Garden TV or on the cooking channel, Food Network. Okay, so bulking sources, we talked about that. We talked about no blenders. Talked about saying you can get more information at this website. We talked about visual aids. Another thing to think about when you're actually planning out your speech, and we'll go into outlines again next week, but if you want to look at the chapter on outlines in your book, or even read ahead a little bit in the notes for next week, you'll see outlines. And I'll actually post a blank speech outline template in this week's discussion so that you can see it. It's a good idea to look at it and so you can see the way that speeches should flow. It'll help you to get more organized, help you to put in all of the elements that you're supposed to put in, and it'll help you to feel more confident. This is the first speech that is planned. The last speech was more about you, so it didn't have to be quite as planned. I'm sure some of you did plan it, but this one really needs planning. So it could help you to look at the outlining section of the book and follow an outline for this speech. You don't have to turn in an outline. If you want to, I'll be happy to look at it for you, but you don't have to. You're not required to do that for this week. When you look at the outline, there are a few things that I'd like to point out. There is in the introduction, there's a credibility statement. And the credibility statement is where you tell the audience how you are credible to talk on this subject. What makes you credible? Where did you learn this knowledge? What kind of experience do you have? And that's important. I recommend that you work on that for this speech. So if you're going to tell me how to change the oil in my car, I want to know how long you've been doing it for, or if you have been a car mechanic for 10 years, I'd like to know that information. If I don't feel like you're credible, then I'm probably not going to trust you, and I'm probably not going to engage quite as much with the speech because I don't know if I can believe you. As you all know, lots of people have YouTube accounts now, and so lots of people feel like they can make their own YouTube channel and talk about all kinds of different topics. But if you don't tell the audience that you actually have credibility, no matter what it's from, it could even just be that you've done a lot of research on the topic, then you're just a number. You haven't stood out from the crowd. So tell me, why you over anybody else? Why would I listen to you and trust you over everybody else? And that comes back to the sources as well. So once you told me your credibility, which is in the introduction, I understand that your credibility is strengthened during the body of your speech because you provide me information that backs up, proves what you've just said. Okay? So outlines, I recommend looking at outlines in your book. You understand now, I think, what a demonstration speech is. We talked about bulking sources, how to present the information from the source, not just to tell what the source is. No blenders, and visual aids. The only other thing I'd like to mention today, and most of you did a really good job with this in your first speech. In fact, I was really amazed that so many people were just very natural on camera and really just gave it their best for last week. I think most of the classes that I teach, we have a lot of people who are very nervous in that first speech, and if you were or not, it did not come across. Most of you came across as very confident and quite open to the idea of a public speaking class. So that was great. You guys are really doing well. For this speech, what I'd like to, not improve upon, but build upon that is trying to make a connection with the audience. So let's go back to the changing the oil example. If you're going to tell me how to change the oil in my car, tell me why this is important to me too. because that's going to make me listen to you. So this is going to save me money, it could help save the environment, whatever the reasons are, but throw in the reasons why this is important. And when you get to your persuasive speech, if you do this in your demonstration speech, when you get to your persuasive speech, which is your law speech, it's going to be so much easier for you because you obviously have to, you're trying to persuade somebody of something, you obviously have to explain why they should do this. So if you've already done it or started to do it in your demonstration speech, that's going to make your life much easier for your persuasive speech. So that's it. That's all I really wanted to talk about this week. If you have any questions, your speech is due on Saturday. If you have any questions about the speech, if you have any questions about sources, if you have any questions about outlines, even though that's a little ahead of the time, happy to answer them. If you have any issues, everybody did well with YouTube. I didn't have anybody's speech that was unavailable, which is very common usually in most classes. If you have any questions about YouTube or anything at all, just you can email me. You can put the discussion, ask questions in the discussion room, or you can call me. And my phone number is on the front page of the classroom. I will go ahead and schedule another Google Hangouts for next week. So if you want it at a particular time, let me know. And if I can fit it into that time, I'm happy to do so. All right. I look forward to seeing your speeches on Saturday or Sunday. Thank you. Bye.